And today's 7. Now, it's an idea that we've looked at a few times throughout the Headspace journey, but something I'd like to kind of come back to today is very much related to this idea of compassion. You could almost say that it is the essence of compassion. But when we focus very much on our own problems, our own difficulties, that's nearly always when we struggle, when we experience difficulty ourselves, and when we experience a lot of suffering in our own mind. It's the nature of being too self-focused that we get to experience these things. So very often, if you kind of look around actually at people in life, people who are, and I don't mean this in any sort of judgmental way, but people who are very sort of self-focused or selfish, if you like, they tend to experience a lot of negative mind states. Sometimes that's apparent, sometimes it's not. If you look at people who are genuinely concerned with the well-being of others, the happiness and the well-being of others, very often you'll notice that they have a very soft, kind, happy nature about them. Now, very often we can be so focused on trying to help others that it becomes quite consuming in the mind. We start to think a lot about it, and in thinking a lot about it, we kind of move away from that place of genuine empathy, compassion, of care. We start to think of ourselves in relation to the task at hand. But if you look at those people who are just genuinely in the moment, concerned with the well-being of others, there's almost no space to be concerned about their own difficulties or what's going on in the mind, and it creates a space in which they just quite naturally feel happy, where they quite naturally feel calm and content. So in this way, I think it's quite kind of right to say that when we focus on the happiness and well-being of others, as a general rule, we tend to experience less suffering, less difficulty in our own mind, less chaos, less confusion in our own mind, and less busyness in our own mind. Yet when we focus on ourselves, then the reverse tends to be true. So just with that in mind, and recognizing this link, this relationship between creating the conditions for compassion and experiencing a sense of genuine happiness and contentment in our lives, this is something really worth reflecting on later in the day after you've actually done the exercise itself. But for now, just getting comfortable in the chair or on the floor, wherever you're sat today. Eyes open. And when you're ready, some nice big deep breaths. And with the next out breath, just closing the eyes. And just taking the next minute or two just to settle in to the space around you. And then just scanning down through the body as you begin to become more aware of both sensation and emotion. So just checking in with your motivation, reminding yourself that the exercise is much bigger than the individual. And now just bringing the attention back to the breath, back to the movement of the breath in the body. And just focusing the attention there just for the next couple of minutes. And in your own time now, just beginning the visualization, remembering to take the time, remind yourself of the qualities inherent to that visualization. And remembering to take it as far as the mind can possibly imagine. And with the next out breath, you can just let go of any image that you might have in the mind. Let go of any focus on the breath. And just allow the mind to do whatever it wants to do. So just bringing the attention now back to the body, back to the weight of the body, that feeling of gravity. You just start to notice all the different physical senses, opening your eyes in your own time. Aware of how you feel, just enjoying having taken that time out for yourself. Aware perhaps of how it's put you more in touch with that quality of empathy. And just recognizing the benefits of remaining with that throughout the day. And when you've done that, you can just gently open the eyes again if you haven't done already, and sit back in the chair. So just to pick up again on the idea that we're looking at the beginning of the exercise today. I know something that often comes up with this topic, and that's the idea that somehow we tend to struggle kind of even more when we're really focused on someone else's suffering. It's really, really difficult, and in some ways it's easier to kind of just ignore it and pretend it's not there. But I think what often happens is the mind takes over, and we get into a pattern of anxiety or worry or even depression around a particular issue, somebody else's suffering. And that's very different. Remember, that's very different from the experience of relating to that person through feeling, rather than going off into a spiral of thought, either reflecting on what could have been, what could be in the future, whether we're projecting forward and imagining where the situation might go, or whether we're looking back and thinking how it's affected us as individuals, how it's affected other people around us. So it's very easy to start bringing all of those things in, and that's where I think the confusion can often arise between compassion being a very spacious and light quality in which we're genuinely able to connect with another person, and perhaps something very heavy and difficult and something that we think might be easier to sort of move aside or ignore or step away from in some way. So compassion in itself, there's nothing inherently tiring in that. It's how we kind of relate to the ideas that might arise when we pause for long enough to really appreciate where another person is at that particular time. As always, though, look out for opportunities throughout the day to apply this quality of empathy, of understanding, and I look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow for day 8 of part 2.